Hey, welcome, good afternoon. It's Vicki and Russ here. We wanted to speak with you about the ketogenic diet, and we'll start with what is keto, ketosis, and that's pretty much the body's response to reduced carbohydrates. We have a dual system, so we can either use glucose for fuel or we can use fat for fuel. It's a wonderful thing about our bodies, and there are many different variations of the ketogenic diet. So, hey everybody. You've heard of low carb, high fat. You can change your fat and your protein intake based on your dietary needs, how you handle the diet itself, food sensitivities, your goals, whether you're an athlete, you're overweight, obese, or the worried well, as Russ says. If you have any underlying pathologies you're trying to address, we look into those. So it can definitely be customized based on,
exactly
what all you include or want to eliminate. There are many, many different variations. There's not just one size fits all. I've done pretty much all of them as heavy training. I've done, targeted ketogenic diet. So you consume, carb load right before you work out. So that's a method you can use. And any insight?
No, that's good.
I just keep rambling.
I like that. You're getting so good at educating folks. Folks, one of the things that I wanted to do something to talk about the ketogenic diet that a lot of the other keto folks don't talk about. So let me give you a little backstory. Obviously, when I was a paramedic attached to the SWAT team, we were banging down the carbohydrates. We weren't really healthy. And we were also banging down the alcohol, which is a super carbohydrate as well. Well, when I shifted over to started training and racing as a triathlete in '84, I noticed a lot of athletes were overweight, even stacking the high mileage. And because I understood cardiac arrhythmias and physiology, and I was reading at the time The Zone, Dr. Barry Sears wrote The Zone, that was 40-30-30, where he started adding more fat to the endurance athlete's diet. And I read Dr. Noakes's book, The Lure of Running, 700-page book, where Dr. Noakes at the time was preaching high carbohydrates for races. And we as triathletes in the early years, we were trying to follow what all the gurus are saying. Well, in 1996, a group of triathletes and myself, we shifted to the ketogenic diet because I kept doing research and I kept watching guys crossing the finish line. And then myself and my roommates that were racing all over Florida, we started to put on weight. So I'm thinking, like, if it's calories in, calories out, I'm riding 400 miles a week, I'm running 30, I'm swimming about 10,000 yards, why am I gaining body fat?
You should be in a huge deficit.
Exactly. So in 1996, folks, you can see this on the Russ Scala YouTube channel, we started to incorporate the ketogenic diet. And right at the same time in 1996, I got to travel to the best laboratories and work with the physicians. And I went to the Great Smokies Diagnostic Lab where we were looking at microbiome testing in '96. I actually flew to these laboratories. And so what I learned about keto is that everybody is biochemically unique, and everybody's going to respond to the ketogenic diet differently. You could be somebody with a pathology like low, you could have hyperthyroidism, or you could have low hormonal levels or estrogen dominant, and you're not going to respond to the ketogenic diet the right way. So the three people that Vicki mentioned, the three groups of people, are athletes, people with a pathology that's undiagnosed, and the worried well. So there's actually three different types of folks that are looking for the ketogenic diet and looking for answers. And your microbiome, your intestinal tract, you are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. And the reason we start out testing our clients' microbiome is because everybody's microbiome is as unique as their fingerprint. And there are no sweeping generalizations with the ketogenic diet. And that's sort of what we want to cover today is, why wouldn't you respond to the ketogenic diet? Why, what would stop you from going into nutritional ketosis, and what's the difference, and what does that look like for you? And there is one sweeping generalization. I always tell people to keep a food mood log and track your food. because rotation versus repetition when it comes to nutrient density.
Correct.
And some people are allergic to, like broccoli, for instance, when we do a food sensitivity test.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, all of your food is synthesized there and transported from your intestines, your stomach, your liver. All of that determines your brain chemistry. It determines your hormone levels. So if you're cutting out inflammatory foods, it's going to allow your body to process out of those things more efficiently. By inflammatory foods, I mean grains, dairy for many people is a problem, which is also very high in sugar. I was telling Russ years ago I would drink probably a gallon of milk a week, which did not help my situation. But your neurotransmitters are created in your gut. You have over 200 million neurons, so it's basically, I was watching a documentary, it's basically the equivalent of a small pet's brain. So when we talk about the second brain. No,
I love that. And here's another thing, folks. Let's take a page out of the book Potatoes Not Prozac, where a woman, a PhD, was talking about addictions and recommending a sweet potato at night to elevate people's serotonin levels so they can go into level 4 REM sleep. Again, certain people that go on the ketogenic diet may have adrenal insufficiency, their thyroid may be low, they may have low serotonin levels. So these people that were eating carbohydrates, keeping their neurotransmitters elevated with the carbs, when you cut them off on the ketogenic diet, these people can crash and burn, they could start to feel bad. And you can see it on some of the Facebook groups. Hey, I'm losing my hair, what do I do? Mm-hmm. Eat more fat. And I don't criticize anybody. I'm just saying you got to get baseline blood work. And again, blood work is just a guide. Mm-hmm. Everybody is biochemically unique, and blood work is in ranges, but at least the blood work can give us a baseline on where you are. You start the ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting, and then we have something to track, like over 90 days, 100 days, if that makes sense.
Correct, yeah. Well, I didn't have blood work done before I started keto 3 years ago, aside from when I had my stroke. So, and they didn't test my gut. They did blood work basically to determine, my cholesterol levels and things like that, my blood glucose, and then I had an MRI done. But I didn't have anything more extensive than what you would get just from the ER visit for something like that. So, I had that before I started, but I didn't know what my brain chemistry was. They didn't test my adrenals. So when I went keto, actually 0 carb cold turkey overnight, that possibly could have damaged, my stress response, my mood, how I was sleeping. It was rough in the beginning, going through the withdrawals. I could have had an easier time if I would have tapered the carbs off slowly or transitioned away from the refined stuff before cutting out everything else. So definitely getting blood work and then monitoring your progress and then revisiting that blood work so that you can compare, instead of just doing crash diets that you can create more damage. The goal is to build your health up, build your gut up by putting in a wide variety of vegetables and low glycemic index fruits, good healthy meats, and cutting out the refined stuff.
Right. That's good. Good job. See, every day, folks, you need about 21 minerals, 13 vitamins, 8 amino acids from protein, 2 essential fats, a little starch, and sunlight. You are not what you eat or you absorb. If you're not getting the 21 minerals, 13 vitamins, 8 amino acids, and 2 essential fats from food, your body's going to mine it out of your own tissue. And this is where osteoporosis or sarcopenia, muscle wasting, starts to come in. So somebody that's 40 or 50 that is not pulling nutrients out of food, when they go into level 4 REM sleep at night and growth hormone is released to repair them at the cellular level, the body looks around and says, okay, I'm going to take calcium and magnesium from the bone. I'm going to take some amino acids from the muscle. And when I see people, I wrote a muscle wasting program one time, folks, where this guy walked by me. I was eating dinner, and this gentleman came by me, about 80 years old. He was in a walker. It took him about 5 minutes to walk by me. And I'm like, God damn, why can't this guy go somewhere to a doctor and get put on testosterone and get put on a protein program and a diet.
Mm-hmm.
He was struggling to go by me, and I drew a circle and I started writing everything that caused muscle wasting.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, as we age, fat distribution is genetically determined, hormonally regulated. I set up a lot of anti-aging centers across from Beverly Hills to Boca Raton when I was director of research for a large pharmacy. And I saw people in their 60s and 70s resonating on really good diets and getting their hormone levels replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm designing disease-specific treatment protocols, whether it's IBS, brain injury, dementia. Mm-hmm. I plug in treatment protocols using the ketogenic diet because on a cellular level, your body will use, your brain and your heart will use fat more efficiently. The most metabolically active tissue in the body is your heart, your brain tissue, and your liver, obviously, mm-hmm. uses fat more efficiently. And when you use fat, you produce less ROS, less oxygen radical species, so you get less free radical damage. Mm-hmm. So I could plug in this diet, and that's why I'm educating you folks out there with the Russ Scala YouTube channel, because I've been in front of hundreds of physicians. God bless them. They're not trained in this. They don't know how this diet works. Some of them do, mm-hmm. But it has to be customized to the individual, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, it has to always be customized. That's why I say there's many different variations. I mean, take the protein-sparing modified fast, for instance. It's a high protein, low fat, low carbohydrate diet. So you are in ketosis. People use it to cut weight really quickly. It's actually one of the most scientifically backed crash diets that you can do. A lot of bodybuilders use it prior to competition, but you do it for short periods of time. Whereas and you are in ketosis, you're burning fat for fuel, but it's a short-term method. Whereas the proper moderate protein, moderate healthy fats, and low carbohydrates to keep you in ketosis is more long-term. I have things like root vegetables once in a while, and I stay in ketosis. I have, more fibrous vegetables. I stay in ketosis. Why? Because I've been doing it for 3 years. I'm adapted, and I can play with my tolerance. The goal is to be flexible, right? Metabolic flexibility.
Yeah, our bodies and our metabolism is a hybrid engine. On a cellular level, inside the cell, obviously we've got DNA, liposomes, and the Golgi apparatus that is able to break down things on a cellular level. I don't want to put anybody to sleep, but our ability to burn fat and glucose is what helped us evolve. And if we study paleophysiologists that have been studying the different cultures for 1,000 years, we understand that protein helped develop the prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. We know that essential fatty acids helped increase our brain tissue because DHA and EPA stimulate neurogenesis and increase brain function. Mm-hmm. So because we are metabolically flexible, the problem that some people that try the ketogenic diet and they crash and burn is because they've got an undiagnosed pathology that their doctor missed, and then they come on Facebook and they've tried every diet, and they may come to a group of people that are on a ketogenic page, and they're all losing weight, and they want to jump in without any blood work, and then they may get hypoglycemia, they may get the keto flu. It just
rash.
It throws people.
The severe fatigue,
exactly.
Lethargy are pretty common. A lot of those can be rectified with electrolytes. It's not negotiable. It has to be part of your daily routine intake because grains cause the body to hold on to fluid and hold on to those electrolytes, whereas the ketogenic diet is a diuretic. So you're going to flush those things out unless you replenish. So if you're drinking a ton of water and you're not replacing those electrolytes, you're going to feel fatigued. You're not going to have the energy. You might not be sleeping well, and it can cause appetite problems. So, you have to do your research. You have to do your due diligence, because if you're not taking in enough sodium, potassium, magnesium through your food, it can create issues. And if you're low in potassium, you can end up having heart palpitations.
Yeah, it's called hyponatremia. A lot of triathletes that I work with and marathon runners that were pounding the water without electrolytes, they end up, they can actually cause brain swelling. And you could look this up. There's a book called Waterlogged that talks about how you could damage yourself drinking too much water. And as Vicki said, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Folks, we've got sodium and potassium pumps on every cell, the trillions of cells in our body. And I don't recommend the ketogenic diet to people that are athletes until we get a really good baseline. I look at their gut. I could design a lot of performance programs. I've immersed myself in the bodybuilding community and lived and worked along those guys and studied lab work, never judging anybody, just getting information from them. I was a triathlete for 20 years. And then before that, I was responding to emergency calls as a paramedic, repeatedly responding to the same people with diabetes and watching their bodies deteriorate. And even my father with diabetes, if my father was going to the Olive Garden and he loved the breadsticks, he would add more insulin to his injection. And that insulin, I was looking at him, and obviously, you know better, but I'm not going to say anything. Listen, right? But when you inject yourself with insulin, folks, it blocks the arteries in your heart over time. So whether you're elevating insulin levels, eating simple carbohydrates, or you're injecting yourself, bypass surgery is right around the corner, because insulin, is a growth hormone, and the high sugar and high insulin is something called oxidative stress. When you cut an apple in half and the apple gets brown, that's oxidative stress. If you spray the other part of the apple, it doesn't get brown. That's the antioxidants protecting you. So for a diabetic with high oxidative stress, high blood sugar, high insulin, and maybe high estrogen because they're overweight, that damages the endothelial lining and starts to block the arteries. So I watched this happen to my father, and who's an old Jersey Union leader, so try telling him something. So I watched this happen to him. He ended up having bypass surgery. I just watched a gregarious guy that just loved life slowly deteriorate and not have the quality of life. But he always checked his blood sugar. So if he injected himself with extra insulin so he could eat, as long as that blood sugar was down, he thought he was golden. That's all he cared about.
Didn't care about the inflammation that he was creating, the extra burden on his liver, the digestive issues that occur from less diverse microbiome. Those things don't really occur to a lot of people, so that's what we're trying to change. The goals with eating a ketogenic diet consist of lowering your blood sugar, lowering your A1C, your insulin levels, reducing inflammation, creating a more habitable environment for those proper bacteria to do the work to spread to your tissues, to the building blocks of life, building your brain, your heart.
Right, exactly.
Your muscle tissue, preventing muscle wasting as we age, preventing osteoporosis. And that occurs when the body's balanced and it has nutrient-dense foods. A lot of people don't talk about the importance of organ meats, right? Those are basically like back in the day, they were your vitamins, they were your supplements. You add those into everything else to kind of round it all out. They're very high in vitamin B's, which many people are deficient in, which creates issues with the liver.
Right.
Cell or tissue regeneration and repair.
I think that's, folks. I think synthetic nutrients. I know. The vitamin industry is $1 billion industry, but I believe that functional food, which is an $80 billion business in China and Japan, I believe that's going to be a hot topic, because functional food, like Vicki was just talking about, when you could eat the organ meat. Years ago, they used to throw away the steaks, and we used to eat the animal from nose to tail. And we know that the thymus gland, the pancreas, the brain, the heart, all carry different nutrient levels. And I think whether it was the Bantu tribe or the American Indians, they knew to eat the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys to get vitamin C. This is a cultural perspective of eating the animal from nose to tail and taking synthetic nutrients right now. Like we tested some people last month with a high level mitochondrial testing program, and they're on like 60 supplements, and I get their test results back and we go over with them, and they're deficient because we're looking at them on a cellular level, and they say, hey Russ, how can I be deficient? I'm taking all these vitamins and minerals. I go, well, you're not absorbing them. So again, folks, there's a lot of excipients in vitamins. I rather you clean up your gut and have your body take all the vitamins you need, 21 minerals, 13 vitamins, 8 amino acids, 2 essential fats. I'd rather your body and your gut take that out of a Greek salad all at once,
right,
than taking one synthetic nutrient, because a synthetic nutrient can cause imbalances in the metabolism. And what we do is we measure nutrient-dependent metabolic functions. We measure the machinery.
right.
If that makes sense.
Milena, thank you for tuning in. She was talking about the bone broth and the organ meats that she provides to her kids because she has them on a ketogenic diet now. And she's made it from home. It's infused with all the wonderful collagen and the protein and the bone marrow. That's so amazing for the balance of her children's intestines and liver function, because glycine, which is part of collagen, actually helps the liver detoxify itself better. So that's a wonderful thing, Milena, you're doing for your kids.
Good job, Milena. This is what, last week we talked about moms going to schools where they're feeding their kids like 2 meals and then 3 snacks. And these schools are, again, I'm not shooting down schools. I'm just saying moms need to get together, form communities, and educate the school system or the teachers, like Vicki does. Vicki makes her own lunch for her children. She tells the teachers that I don't want my kids to have any snacks, Skittles. I don't want my kids rewarded with food.
Right.
And is that extreme?
Consistency.
You want your child to be not be producing extra insulin. You wonder why kids fall asleep during math classes, because they've got fluctuating blood sugar levels from the candy they just served a half hour earlier.
Yeah.
So that was last week, and folks, this week we're talking about how you slowly shift your body into nutritional ketosis, and that you are biochemically unique. So if you get on a Facebook page and everybody's talking about this is the only way to do it, it's not, because listen, you all have different fingerprints. We know that your microbiome is personal to you. Understand you are all biochemically unique. So if you and your friends start keto, you're all going to respond to it differently. Okay, so just kind of wrap your head around that.
There is an adaptation process. It can take time. It could take weeks. It could take months, depending on where your body is at that time and how much, say, inflammation, damage you have. I used to be a yo-yo dieter. I would do the starvation diet, where you just don't eat anything for a couple weeks to get those pounds off, and working out, of course, because you have to do that. I did extended water fasts, juicing, you name it. But what it did is it created a lot of issues with my adrenals, obviously. When I did my blood work and my urinalysis, came back that I had some issues with my detoxification pathways in my liver. So it's better if you have direction and you can go about it the right way. That way you don't throw yourself into upheaval, because if you have responsibilities, a business, kids, you don't want to do something that you think is going to help you and then it ends up hurting you in the end. So there is an adaptation process. Some people do really, really well with it. They switch over to being fat burners pretty easily. Some people, it takes a little bit of time, so you need to be patient with yourself, trust the process, keep your electrolytes up, eat a wide variety of local grown foods, a lot of nutrients there. And then once you get past that point, you'll find that it really helps with your energy levels, because you have, what is it? How many calories does someone usually carry? 40,000 excess calories on average on a person. So if you think you're going to starve to death, that's not really the case. We are created to store fat for fuel. So we need to learn how to utilize it. Instead of just storing it, we need to open up the doors on those cells so that the fat can be released.
Right, there's something called hormone-sensitive lipase and lipoprotein lipase. There are little doors on the cell. Hormone-sensitive lipase, when it's elevated when you fast or when you go on a ketogenic diet, it opens up a door in the fat cell to be utilized as fuel. And what I was thinking back when we were triathletes, when we started the ketogenic diet, I mean, I ended up in the ER with an electrolyte imbalance on a few occasions. We didn't know what we were doing. We learned a lot. A lot of us, I had atrial fibrillation, so I went to like 3 or 4 cardiologists. And what I gleaned, a lot of us lost weight, but when we were in the performance area, when we were really training hard, I didn't have that interval gear. I mean, I could go long distance on the ketogenic diet, but I had no, if I went to the track to run intervals, I had no gas. So on the cellular level, glucose is still king. And I tested triathletes and NBA players and baseball players. The fast twitch muscle fiber still needs glucose. And I don't think all the school, there's a bunch of low carb athlete groups out there. I think this is all blue ocean strategies right now. We really don't know. And I worry about athletes that are riding their bike like 100 miles on no carbs. I think they may be compromising their body. Again, I'm not shooting anybody down. I'm just saying, I don't think endurance sports are healthy, and I did them for 20 years. I think it's a state of illness when you're training, sort of like when a bodybuilder is getting ready for a competition. Right when he gets on stage there, he's the most he's the most depleted. So a lot of these triathletes, and I was one of them that finished the half Ironman, for that week after, I'm so depleted, I'm depressed. I'm like thinking to myself, why am I doing this? And then I got 50 people that I'm training with. That was my community. So I had to learn over time that community was not healthy. So any of you folks that want to try the ketogenic diet, form a community. Get some partners, brainstorm it with each other. Take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I mean, this is a learning process, and we're all biochemically unique. It's so important. Makes sense?
We wanted to go over some misconceptions that are commonly found with anytime you tell someone that you're going to do the ketogenic diet or low carb, or however you want to say it. It doesn't cause kidney damage unless you have a pre-existing kidney condition to where you can't handle the moderate protein or lower protein. So that's an issue there. You want to work on healing your kidneys, which, there's a Dr. Jason Fung in Canada who utilizes the ketogenic diet, which is a very, very high fat version, the original version, to do that. So it is possible. But no, you're not going to damage your kidneys. It doesn't damage your hormones. If anything, you're supplying more healthy fats with a wider range of omegas in the proper proportions so that your liver can create those hormones.
Love it. Yeah, cholesterol, folks. Everybody on cholesterol-lowering drugs is lowering the one cholesterol ingredient makes up testosterone, estrogen, DHA, progesterone. Cholesterol is the one ingredient that makes all the hormones in our body. And now with recent articles, you can see that the statin drugs, the cholesterol-lowering drugs, are damaging the heart and the brain at the level of the mitochondria because we need fat. And that's sort of like what's happening right now. There's a paradigm shift happening in heart disease, cancer, diabetes. We're living in an amazing time. So instead of me educating physicians like I did for years or acting as a patient advocate, it's really easy for me just to do these streams with Vicki and educate people. I want to plant a seed, sort of give you the aha moment. You can go to the Russ Scala YouTube channel and watch a little longer versions of these videos.
Right.
And just take care of yourself and the family, and don't be afraid. Don't get icon intimidation, folks. Just because you're sitting in front of the doctor, he has no training in nutrition. You're not a bad person if you ask the doctor questions, even though they may make you feel bad. Or saying you're a Google doctor. Hell yeah, I'm a Google doctor. This is my family. I know you're coming at me with medication. I want to make sure that my family is on track. That's what you need to do, folks. Become the CEO of your own health.
Right. Another misconception is the brain needs glucose. While that is partially true, there's a small segment that requires glucose, but that's what our liver's for. It's called gluconeogenesis. We actually create glucose from fatty acids.
Exactly, folks. When I was developing brain rehab programs, I had some of the most brilliant neurologists sit down next to me. I felt like Luke Skywalker talking to Yoda, and I was just ready to take some notes, and I was running this stuff by them and showing them what we were doing with brain injury patients. And from the diet side, they just said, listen, we were able to look inside the brain just a few years ago with fMRIs. And I was studying, what is it, the brain, we used to think the brain was hardwired. Now we know the brain continues to grow with something called IGF-1, testosterone, brain-derived neurotropic factor, stimulating the neurological pathways and our little synaptogenesis to keep the brain, growing. We used to think it was hardwired. Now we know that the ketogenic diet is not only can it stop brain tumors, but it helps stimulate neurogenesis, synaptogenesis. And we never knew that before. So by me sitting down with these neurologists, these brilliant guys that took the time to come to my office, like I said, I'm a nobody in the neurology market, but they came and they said that we were like 3, 4, 5 years ahead, and that their practice was a little bit too conservative for this, but they would take phone calls for me. And they did. So, this is all new, folks. What I'm talking to you about is, we get clients from the Mayo Clinic. And when that first started happening, I'm like, holy mackerel. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it, everybody's trained the same way. Think about Lorenzo Zoil. The mother and father, before the internet, their son, Lorenzo Odone, had a long-chain fatty acid disease called adrenoleukodystrophy. The mother and father drilled down, just like we're doing today, and put the brakes on adrenoleukodystrophy and stood the neurological community in Europe on their ear. Those are parents drilling down, trying to save their kid. And that's what we're doing here today. We're trying to form communities so you could talk to your neighbor about something, and maybe you might bring something up that when they're going to the doctor, they're going to ask a question. That's powerful, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. The more information, the better. Doing your individual research. I have been in different ketogenic groups with various different methods on how they approach this way of eating, and you just gather as much information as you can, and you make a decision based on your individual body, because I'm not like someone else. I haven't, say, eaten the same foods or had the same lifestyle, so it needs to be geared towards me. And I tried different ones. I tried carnivore, no carb. I tried really, really low carb, and then I tried, a little bit higher, and I did cycling, carb loading. I did, right before I worked out, I would load like 50 to 75 grams of glucose and see how my body responded to that and how it responded afterwards. So you could definitely, change it up, see how you feel, see how you sleep. Another misconception is, let's see, what did I write down here? Oh, the ketoacidosis problem. They, if you talk to laymen, they usually think, oh, you're going to have ketoacidosis and you're going to die. No, that's actually pretty restricted to type 1 diabetics. They have to be very, very careful. Not that they can't have a successful experience with the ketogenic diet. They just have to monitor really closely on their body and how it responds, and then the levels of their insulin production. And then they have to customize it based on them. They can do really well, and I follow people online that they monitor their child's type 1 diabetes with just the ketogenic diet and their blood meter. They rarely, if ever, have to take insulin, and those children are going to grow up and have a healthier, longer lifespan because they weren't on insulin their whole life.
That's exactly right. The traditional medicine teaches their doctors in medical school about diabetic ketoacidosis, and it's always a bad thing when they read about it. It's very dangerous and is life-threatening. What we're talking about here is the metabolically flexible way we produce energy. We're talking about nutritional ketosis, something that you could monitor yourself. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, folks. So remember, fat distribution is genetically determined, hormonally regulated. Why do men and women have different upper and lower body fat? It has to do with estrogen and testosterone. So the ketogenic diet needs to focus more on balancing out people's hormonal levels. So before I put anybody on the ketogenic diet, folks, and I deal with the outliers, war veterans, EMS, high-level executives, guys at the 11th hour that are in the tank, and I'm not going to put them, because of their stress, I'm not going to put them on the ketogenic diet right away until I balance out their brain chemistry with our doctors, because that could be the one thing that pushes them over the edge. If people are medicating themselves with alcohol, pizza, or bagels, and they're in a stressful situation, I'm not going to touch that until they cycle out of that stressful situation. And listen, when I was responding to emergency calls, I didn't go to a psychiatrist when I was having people die in my arms. I was drinking a lot to deal with it, and that wasn't healthy for me, but it took me about 7 years to realize that I had to change my diet as well, because, you know, guys form communities, whether they're cops, firemen, EMS, and you keep everybody else out. You don't let anybody in, and that isn't healthy. So luckily, I shifted my community to a bunch of triathletes, and those people saved my life at that time there. So, you know, we started using the ketogenic diet in 1996, and we gleaned a lot of information in that time. And I don't like people saying there's only one way to do it, because just like everybody has a different shoe size.
Correct.
Your training is more valuable than somebody that went to nutritional school or a dietitian, because you understand the journey, you understand the metabolism. Vicki understands the multiple metabolic systems involved. She understands that traditional medicine or traditional dietitians, it's one Model T Ford coming off the assembly line for everybody. The reason Vicki's valuable to our team is because she knows everybody is biochemically unique, and she has a bigger toolbox right now than a nutritionalist that is saying you need to eat 100 grams of carbs a day. And I'm not slamming nutritionists or dietitians.
Not at all.
They use a sweeping generalization that we should get back to biochemical individuality when we're talking about our friends, our moms or dads, and our children.
Well, when I had my stroke, I was following a diet and exercise program that any nutritionist would say was perfect. I was eating all my healthy grains. I was eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and lean meats. You know, no added fats whatsoever to my food. Lots of greens and, you know, beans and all of that stuff. Low calorie, because I got to count all of those calories. And then I was just working out really, really heavily and consistently, and then I had my stroke. So that's what kind of flipped me around, as I figured, you know, if I'm doing everything right, yet I end up here, then maybe I need to reconsider some things. So that's why I changed the way I eat. And Russ, you've been eating keto for how many years now?
I started keto in '96 because I was a fat triathlete, but it just took me a long time to dial it in. I used the ketogenic diet 10 years ago when I went on hormone replacement therapy, because when I was racing, folks, my testosterone and growth hormone, thyroid, everything was extremely low. I could barely get out of bed, so I was medicating myself with carbohydrates. But once I started to learn about the physiology and do my blood work, and I did the hormone replacement therapy, which is what I do now. I train doctors on how to use TRT therapy safely and effectively. And the combination of the ketogenic diet and hormone replacement therapy is super powerful. Again, but it has to be done the right way. This is not about putting on 20 pounds of muscle. This isn't about crossing the finish line of a marathon in sub 3 hours thinking you're healthy.
Right.
This is about longevity. There's a big trade-off between longevity, folks, and performance. We got 8,000 people a day turning 65 for the next 20 years. They want to keep riding their bikes in Europe. I want to keep people getting healthy, and I want to keep creating content. I want to get away from working one-on-one with people. So stand by for some really cool content.
Absolutely. So some takeaways we'd like to give you is, when you're looking to pursue this way of eating, you want to get baseline blood work with your doctor, and go slow. Try and evaluate what stressful conditions you might have going on with your life at the moment, because it will take time. If you're going to be traveling, obviously not a good idea, because you don't know how well you're going to do with getting those carbohydrates and everything out of your system. So go slow, and approach that in a way that, you know, you can reduce, say, the refined foods, if that's a big part of your diet, and then play around, reduce the dairy and the grains slowly. Make it in a way that's going to be sustainable. People say that keto is just a crash diet. You do it for a little while to lose some weight, and then you go back to eating normal. Well, if I wanted to go back to eating normal, I'd get fat again, because that's what got me fat to begin with. So I don't understand that. It's like if I'm being poisoned and I stop drinking the poison, I'll get well. Well, if I go back to drinking the poison, I'll get sick again. Yeah, obviously.
So folks, here's my takeaway. I got one. No, actually a couple. Here we go.
Got a couple.
Folks, every day we need 21 minerals, 13 vitamins, 8 amino acids, 2 essential fats. You are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. Okay, so it's better to get your nutrients from real food, clean up your intestinal tract. Think about the ketogenic diet, but go slow. Form a community, form some friends that you can do it with. Don't worry about exercising for the first week. Just kind of get the feel for this diet and keep a food mood log.
Yeah.
Very
important.
And if you do that, folks, I think with what we're doing on the Russ Scala YouTube channel and Scala Precision Health, we're always going to be putting up new content for you. And you have to protect your family and become the CEO of your own health.
Absolutely.
Is that good?
Yeah. That sounds
good. All right. Thanks,
everybody. Some
really
really great questions today. We'll answer in the comments. Make sure you like and share the page and the videos. The more followers, the better. Get this information out to everybody. Support, everyone trying to make better choices for themselves and their family members. And we will see you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye, buddy.